My name is Abigail Harper. I was born 16 years ago in the quiet suburbs of Chicago, but for the first 15 years of my life, I didn't exist. Not legally, not socially, not even in the family photo on the mantle. The world knew about 3 Harper daughters, Sophia, Charlotte, and Isabella. Identical triplets with matching ribbons and perfect smiles. But there was a 4th. Me. The one no one was supposed to see. While my sisters went to school, celebrated birthdays, and lived under the sun, I lived under the floorboards, in a cold concrete basement that smelled of dust and damp air. There was no window. Only the soft flicker of an old security monitor that showed me glimpses of a world I wasn't allowed to touch. The hum of the camera became my lullaby. The footsteps above were my thunder. And every creak of the wooden stairs reminded me I was not meant to be heard or known or loved. My parents, Robert and Margaret Harper, had a simple explanation whenever they locked the door behind me. The world doesn't need to know about you, Abby. You'll ruin everything. They said the insurance only covered 3 children, not 4. They said hiding me was the only way to keep the family from falling apart. But deep down I understood what they really meant. I wasn't a daughter. I was a spare part. A silent backup plan in case one of the real children got sick. Sometimes I wondered, if everyone believes you don't exist, do you stop being human? Do you become just a shadow, a ghost beneath the house? Every night, I used to whisper the same question to the ceiling above me. Would anyone notice if I disappeared? But something inside me refused to fade. A small defiant spark that whispered back, "You're still here." And that spark, that stubborn, fragile hope, became the reason I'm alive today. This is not just a story about cruelty or fear. It's about awakening, about how one girl, locked away in darkness, discovered her own light. Stay with me until the end, and I'll tell you how I stepped out of the shadows, how I went from being a ghost to being Abigail Harper. This is the journey from darkness to freedom. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories. They're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. The basement was my entire world. Cold concrete walls, rough and damp, pressed in on me like a second skin. The air always smelled of mildew and rust, like forgotten rain. A small camera, fixed high in one corner, blinked its red light every few seconds. That was my son. That was how my parents, Robert and Margaret Harper, kept track of me. When I was little, I used to think everyone had a room like this, a place where you whispered instead of talked, where footsteps upstairs meant danger. It wasn't until I was old enough to count the echoes of laughter above me that I realized life existed elsewhere and I wasn't part of it. My sisters, Sophia, Charlotte, and Isabella, were perfect in every way. The Harper triplets. Their photos were in newspapers, framed in the hallway I wasn't allowed to walk through. People loved the Harpers for their miracle family. 3 identical daughters who represented luck, love, and balance. No one knew about the 4th. No one knew about me. Insurance only covers 3, my father once said, his voice flat, as if he were explaining a math problem. We didn't have a choice. My mother never looked me in the eye when she brought food down. She would leave a tray by the door, bread, soup, sometimes apples, and whisper, "Don't make noise. You're safer this way." Safe. That was her word for imprisonment. I learned to live quietly. I counted seconds between the creaks of the floorboards above. I memorized every crack on the wall, every shift in the damp air when someone opened the door. And I dreamed about the warmth of the sun, the feel of grass, the taste of freedom. When I was 6, Margaret brought me a doll. Its porcelain face was chipped, its dress torn at the hem. "Here," she said softly. "You can name her." I called her Hope. Hope became everything I couldn't be: seen, beautiful, unbroken. I spoke to her when loneliness grew too heavy, when I needed to believe that someone out there could still care about me. I told her about the sisters I had never met, about the smell of their birthdays that drifted down through the vents, frosting, laughter, candles. I told her how I sometimes pressed my ear to the wall and imagined being upstairs, sitting beside them, blowing out the same candles. But every time I reached for that dream, the ceiling above me felt like a cage pressing closer. Sometimes I thought about my father's words about how one line on a paper, insurance only covers 3, decided whether a child could live in the light or not. It was cruelly logical, the kind of decision that made sense to adults who stopped believing in humanity. Still, I believed. I believed because of the doll, because of the tiny flicker in my chest that refused to die even when everything else turned gray. And on nights when the red light of the camera glowed in the darkness, I would whisper to it as if it could hear me. One day you'll see me. The world will see me. That was my secret rebellion. The small, stubborn voice of a girl hidden beneath a perfect family. The world had chosen to forget me, but I hadn't forgotten myself. It happened by accident, like all forbidden truths do. The night the Harper sisters found me, the house was echoing with laughter. It was Isabella's idea to play hide and seek, the kind of childish game their perfect world still allowed. The storm outside made every shadow quiver, every sound deeper. They ran across the hall, counting loudly, until Sophia's voice drifted near the forbidden basement door. "Let's hide down there," she whispered. "No," Charlotte said quickly. "Mom said never open it." But curiosity is louder than obedience. The door creaked open, spilling a sliver of light into my world. For a second they hesitated, 3 golden-haired girls in matching pajamas, frozen on the edge of something they couldn't name. Then the flashlight beam sliced through the dark, and our eyes met. 3 pairs of identical faces stared at me, wide-eyed, breathless. I was them and yet not. Who are you?" Isabella gasped. I stepped back, trembling. "I'm Abigail," I whispered. "Who are you?" For a heartbeat, none of us breathed. Then Sophia, the boldest, whispered, "Are you the ghost of us?" I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "No," I said softly. "I'm your sister." The air shifted. Confusion gave way to awe. Fear melted into fascination. They edged closer, touching my hand as if to make sure I was real. The warmth of human skin after so many years, it nearly broke me. That night changed everything. They came back again and again. Always when the house slept, barefoot and trembling, carrying secrets in their arms, food, old books, flashlights. They asked me questions about my room, my life, my dreams. I didn't know how to answer most of them. I only knew that when they were there, the basement didn't feel like a prison. Sophia smuggled me a slice of cake on her next birthday. The frosting was already melting, but to me it tasted like sunlight. "Make a wish," she whispered. "We'll share it." I looked at the flickering candle and said the only words that ever lived inside me. "I wish to be free." Charlotte squeezed my hand. "One day, Abby, we'll get you out." From then on, we were sisters not by blood because we already were, but by choice. We built a world between whispers, trading stories, laughter, and the fragile hope that someday we'd walk together in daylight. The nights were still cold, the air still heavy with dampness, but when they were there it no longer mattered. The darkness became a secret garden where I could almost pretend I was just another Harper girl, seen, loved, alive. And as the flashlight flickered against the walls, the 4 of us sat close, our reflections blending into one another. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a mistake. I felt like family. Winter in Chicago came early that year. The air in the basement turned sharp and thin, the concrete so cold it numbed my feet. I had learned to listen through walls, to the rhythm of footsteps, to the muffled conversations above me. But that night the voices were different. Low, urgent. "Her kidneys are failing," my father said. "She won't make it without a match." It was my mother who whispered the next part. "Abigail's healthy. She's the closest genetic copy." There was a pause, a silence heavy enough to crush breath. Then Robert Harper's voice, cold, logical, detached, like he was reading a weather report. "Then she'll save her sister." Save. That was the word he used. Not take from, not cut into, not sacrifice. Just save. The next morning they came for me. They said it was just a checkup, a routine medical test. My father wore his crisp white shirt, the one he used for family photographs. My mother's eyes were red, but her voice was steady. "Be brave, Abby. It's for your family." The basement door opened wider than usual. They led me to a room I'd never seen before. Sterile, pale blue, humming with fluorescent light. The air smelled of antiseptic and metal. On the table lay a tray of instruments that glinted like frozen stars. A man in a lab coat entered, clipboard in hand. He didn't ask my name. He didn't even look at me. Subject 4, he said, reading the chart. Vitals stable. Subject 4. That was the first time I realized I wasn't a daughter. I was an asset. On the desk nearby lay a folder, open just long enough for me to see the heading stamped in red. Life insurance policy. Dependent C, medical value estimated at $3 million US. My heartbeat roared in my ears. $3 million. That was what my life was worth to them. Not as a human being but as a medical fund. My mother placed a cold hand on my shoulder. It's just a small surgery, she murmured. You'll be fine. Your sister needs you. I looked into her eyes, searching for a flicker of love, of guilt, of anything human. But there was nothing, only fear. Fear of losing the perfect daughter. That night, back in the basement, I couldn't sleep. My skin still carried the ghost of that cold room. That clipboard, that word, subject. Fear turned into something else. Something sharper. I began to move differently. I started doing push-ups, crunches, stretches in the dark. I trained my body quietly, methodically. Every breath became a rebellion. Every heartbeat a countdown. I didn't know how or when, but I knew one thing. I would never let them take me apart to fix their perfection. When my sisters sneaked down that week, I told them everything. They want to take your kidney? Sophia whispered, horrified. They said it's for Isabella, I said. But it's not about saving her. It's about saving their image. The four of us sat in silence. The truth hung in the air, heavier than the dampness around us. Then Charlotte, the quiet one, whispered, "We need a plan." That night we created one. We couldn't speak openly. The cameras and mics were everywhere. So I came up with a system, tapping on the pipes that ran along the walls. 1 tap meant safe. 2 taps meant danger. 3 taps, meet me. It became our secret code, our heartbeat beneath the surface of that house. Sometimes, late at night, I'd lie awake and hear the soft rhythm echoing through the metal. My sisters reaching out to tell me I wasn't alone. Each tap was a promise that we would survive this, that they would come for me, that I would never again be a subject. In the silence between those taps, I found something powerful, something my parents could never control. Hope. Not the fragile porcelain kind that sat on a shelf, but the kind that grows teeth. The kind that waits in the dark, biding its time. My 15th birthday began with the sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing down the stairs like a countdown. I had been counting days, breaths, scratches on the wall. Anything that marked the passage of time. I thought I'd have more. But when I saw my mother appear at the bottom of the basement steps, holding a small medical kit, I knew my time had run out. "Just a quick checkup, Abby," she said softly. Her tone was almost tender, but her eyes, those calm, detached eyes, betrayed her. "We need to make sure you're healthy." Healthy. That word felt like a curse. She unpacked the kit on my cot. Sterile gloves, vials, swabs, a small light. The air smelled of alcohol and latex. Her hands didn't tremble. She drew my blood, checked my pulse, wrote something in a small notebook. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my throat. Then she smiled. "You're perfect, sweetheart." That smile terrified me more than any threat could. When she left, locking the door behind her, I sat there shaking. Perfect meant ready. It meant they had made their decision. I wasn't going to survive another checkup. That night I made mine. I waited until the house was silent, until even the refrigerator upstairs stopped humming. Then I slid the thin metal pin Sophia had given me from under my mattress. I had practiced on the old lock for weeks, memorizing the rhythm of the tumblers. My palms were slick with sweat as I worked. Click. Pause. Click. The door opened with a whisper. I froze. Listen. Nothing. For the first time in my life, I stepped out of the basement barefoot, feeling the cool wood floor beneath my feet. The air was different up here, lighter, filled with the faint smell of coffee and detergent. I crept down the hall, staying in the shadows. I knew the camera placements from years of watching the monitors. I knew which tiles creaked and which beams held the sensors. Every move was a calculation between freedom and death. When I reached the kitchen, the world struck me like a wave. Moonlight spilled through the window, soft and silver. I reached out and touched the countertop, smooth and cool. A mug sat half-finished in the sink, coffee still faintly warm. The smell made me dizzy. I had imagined it for years, but reality was overwhelming. I moved to my father's study, the forbidden room. The air there smelled of ink and leather. I opened drawers, flipping through files until I found it. Thick, official-looking papers marked with the Harper insurance seal. And there, stapled to the back, was a smaller document. Policy beneficiary, dependent D medical asset coverage. Beside it, an old hospital bracelet, its plastic cracked and faded, printed with the words, Baby D female Harper. Proof. I existed. My hands trembled as I took photos with the small camera Charlotte had hidden in her school bag for me. I didn't know what I'd do with them yet, but I needed them. Evidence was freedom. And then tires screeched. I froze. The front door opened. Damn it, my mother muttered. Forgot the folder. Her heels clicked on the tile. My stomach dropped. I scrambled for the basement door, slipping through just as she entered the hallway. But I didn't have time to relock it. The door swung open behind me. Abby. Her voice was too calm, too knowing. I darted into the narrow air duct, crawling fast, scraping my knees against the metal. Then came the sound that would haunt me forever. The electric whine of a drill. She was sealing me in. Abby, don't make this harder, she said through the vent. You don't understand. We did this to protect you. The drill bit screamed against the metal, sparks raining down. I sobbed, pressing my palms over my ears. Protect me, I shouted. From what? From the world, she whispered. You were never meant to exist in it. Those words broke something inside me. She thought love was possession. That safety was a cage. That motherhood was ownership. When the last screw tightened and darkness closed in, I stopped crying. My heartbeat slowed. My breath steadied. Because I finally understood. She wasn't protecting me. She was protecting herself from the truth, from the guilt, from me. And I swore in that black airless tunnel that I would never die where she left me. The air inside the vent had grown thin. Each breath scraped my throat raw. Dust stung my eyes, and my fingers were slick with blood from clawing at the metal. Somewhere above, I could still hear the echo of my mother's voice, trembling and distant, like a lullaby turned into a curse. Everything we did was for you, she had said before sealing me in. Don't ruin the family, Abby. The family. That word was poison now. Hours passed, maybe minutes, maybe days. I didn't know anymore. My world had shrunk to the rhythm of my heartbeat and the metallic hum of the house above. Then suddenly through the pipes came 3 soft taps. 1, 2, 3. My code. My sisters. My chest tightened. I tapped back 3 times, quick and desperate. I wasn't sure if they'd hear, but the reply came instantly. A flurry of knocks, then the faint whine of metal being twisted, pulled, broken. And then light. A sliver at first, then a widening crack. Cold air rushed in as the screws fell loose one by one. Sophia's voice came through the opening, trembling but fierce. Hold on, Abby. We've got you. Hands reached in Charlotte's, strong and steady. Isabella's, shaking but determined. Together, they pulled until the last panel gave way. I tumbled out, coughing, my hair matted with dust. For a second, none of us spoke. We just clung to each other in the dark, for reflections of one face, finally side by side. But freedom was never quiet for long. The sound of footsteps thundered upstairs. Then the sharp click of a lock disengaging. She knows, Charlotte whispered. Then we run, Sophia said. We crept through the basement, hearts beating in sync. I could still feel the vibrations of my mother's fury above us. Every movement deliberate, methodical. She wasn't going to let me go this time. When we reached the stairs, the light flicked on. Margaret Harper stood at the top, her silhouette framed by the glow of the hallway. In her hand gleamed a silver scalpel, the same one from her medical kit. Her breath came in ragged bursts, her hair disheveled, eyes wide and shining like glass. You shouldn't have done this, she hissed. You're destroying everything we built. Sophia stepped in front of me. We're saving her, Mom. Saving her. My mother laughed, a sound that cracked in the middle. You think you know what saving means? I kept her alive when the world wouldn't. I gave her food, warmth, protection. You locked her underground. Isabella cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I kept her safe. Her scream echoed off the concrete walls. Then she lunged. The blade flashed under the harsh light. I barely had time to react before Charlotte grabbed her wrist. The two struggled, the scalpel slicing through air. Sophia pushed me toward the stairs, shouting, "Go!" I stumbled up, hands burning against the wood, while Isabella yanked the fire alarm. The shriek of the siren tore through the silence, setting off the entire house's system. Red lights flashed in every corner. In the chaos, Charlotte wrenched the scalpel free and threw it across the floor. My mother stumbled back, screaming my name, not in love but in rage. "Abigail," she howled, "you're making a mistake. They'll never let you live out there. You don't belong anywhere." But I didn't stop. I couldn't. We crashed through the kitchen, through the back door that Sophia had secretly unlocked earlier. The cold night hit us like a wave. The grass was wet, the wind sharp. It was the first time I felt open air on my face in years. Behind us, the alarm blared, and the porch lights flickered on one by one down the quiet suburban street. "Run!" Charlotte yelled. We sprinted barefoot across the yard, our breaths forming clouds in the night. The wet ground cut into our soles, but it didn't matter. Each step was a declaration: I exist. I exist. I exist. Then came the voices. "Margaret? Robert? What's going on?" Mr. Peterson, our neighbor, appeared in his robe, flashlight trembling in his hand. His wife followed behind, gasping when she saw us. 4 identical girls, one covered in grime and bruises. "Oh my God," she whispered. "There's another one." My mother burst through the back door, wild-eyed, her hands bleeding from the broken glass. "Please," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "It's just a misunderstanding. She's sick. She doesn't belong outside." But when the Petersons stepped closer, the light caught my face, pale, thin, shaking but real. Mr. Peterson lowered his flashlight. "No," he said firmly. "She belongs wherever she wants to be." Sirens filled the distance, growing louder, closer. Blue and red lights spilled across the street, painting everything in trembling color. My sisters and I clung to each other as police officers rushed in, separating us gently. My mother tried to explain, her words tumbling out. Insurance, medical care, secrecy, but no one listened. One officer knelt in front of me, his voice calm. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Took me a second to answer. My throat ached, but the word came out steady. "Abigail Harper." He nodded slowly, like he already knew. Another officer helped me into the back of the patrol car, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. I stared out the window as the flashing lights reflected off the house, the only world I'd ever known. The front door swung open, and I caught one last glimpse of my mother on the porch, hands cuffed, shouting my name into the night. "Abby, please. We did this for you." But the words didn't reach me. The glass between us felt thicker than the basement walls ever had. Sophia, Charlotte, and Isabella stood near the officers, their faces streaked with tears but shining with something else, relief. They waved, and I managed a small nod in return. The car began to move. The sirens faded. The night swallowed the house whole. For a long moment I just watched the trees blur past, the world finally opening up before me. I pressed my hand against the cold window, tracing my reflection. The same face I'd always seen on the screens, now breathing, trembling, alive. And then I whispered, so quietly the officer up front didn't hear. "I'm real." The words tasted strange on my tongue. Raw, new, powerful. For 16 years I'd lived in the dark, believing I was a shadow, a mistake, a spare part in someone else's design. But as the city lights came into view, shimmering like 1,000 silent witnesses, I finally understood the truth. I wasn't the secret anymore. I wasn't the backup plan. I wasn't dependent D. I was Abigail Harper. And the world was finally big enough for me. The day the verdict was read, the courtroom was silent. Only the faint hum of the air conditioner filled the space between breaths. Robert and Margaret Harper stood before the judge, faces hollow, their once proud posture crumbling under the weight of truth. The evidence was irrefutable. The hidden basement, the medical records, the insurance contracts labeling Abigail as a contingency donor. When the gavel struck, it echoed like the closing of a tomb. They were sentenced for years of unlawful confinement and medical fraud. For the first time, the 4 of us stood together under the open sky, not as shadows of one another but as living, breathing individuals. The city's wind brushed against my skin like a promise. We were moved to a rehabilitation home for trauma survivors, a quiet, sunlit place near the edge of Chicago. There, the world felt unfamiliar. The sound of traffic, the taste of real food, even the way sunlight changed through the windows each hour. Sophia was the first to laugh again, her voice shaky but real. Charlotte started keeping a journal, writing down everything we'd lost and everything we'd just begun. Isabella, the one who had nearly died, became fiercely protective of us all, never letting anyone close without a question. And me, Abigail, the ghost who had lived beneath their feet. I learned how to exist in daylight. I took small steps, learning to eat at a table, to walk outside without flinching, to look into a mirror and not see a mistake. We shared one small room at the home, walls covered with sketches and pressed flowers. No locks, no cameras, no secrets. Every night before bed we tapped on the headboards, a soft rhythm we'd invented in the basement, our code for "I'm here, you're not alone." The trial dragged on for months, reopening wounds we thought had closed. During her defense, our mother's words cut deep. We only wanted to protect them. The world doesn't understand what it's like to lose a child before it's even born. The courtroom grew tense. But when Sophia stood and showed the jury the documents, the hospital bracelet marked baby D, no one spoke again. The silence that followed wasn't just judgment. It was truth settling in. Afterward, the state established a trust fund using the seized insurance money. It wasn't about wealth. It was acknowledgement. A recognition that I had existed, that we had all existed fully, equally. Months later, we returned to the old house one last time. It had been emptied, sold, and marked for demolition. Standing in the backyard, I watched as the workers dismantled the walls that had once imprisoned me. The air smelled like dust and rain. Sophia slipped her hand into mine. "You made it out," she whispered. "No," I said softly, watching the light spill over the ruins. "We did." That night, back at the home, I wrote a single line in my notebook before turning off the lamp. Freedom isn't just walking outside. It's believing you deserve the sunlight. And for the first time, I believed it. The story of my life was never meant to be told. 4 years I was the unseen one, the fourth heartbeat that no one was supposed to hear. But in the end, the truth found its voice, and it spoke through every scar, every breath, every choice that led me from the basement to the sunlight. Now, when I look back, I no longer see tragedy. I see awakening. Because freedom, I've learned, doesn't come when the door opens. It begins the moment you believe you deserve to walk through it. From everything that happened, there are lessons I carry deep within me. Truths carved into the quiet corners of my heart. 1. Family isn't defined by blood, but by those who choose to stand beside you. The world told me family meant parents, but my real family were my sisters, the ones who reached into the darkness and pulled me into the light. Blood may connect us, but love is what keeps us alive. 2. Truth can hurt, but it is the only thing that can set your soul free. My truth tore our family apart, yet it also built the bridge to who I was meant to be. Lies imprison, truth resurrects. 3. Real love never needs to hide. My mother claimed she loved me by keeping me secret, but love that isolates isn't love, it's fear. Love should breathe, not suffocate. 4. Dignity cannot be priced or insured. I was once worth $3 million on paper, a number, a contract, a spare part. But human worth can't be written in ink or bound by law. Dignity is the quiet knowing that you matter, even when no one else believes it. 5. Freedom begins when you believe you deserve to live. I used to dream of sunlight. Now I wake up in it. Freedom isn't found in the open world. It's found in the moment your heart stops apologizing for existing. Today I live under my own name. I go to school. I walk streets filled with noise and life and ordinary joy. Some days the shadows still visit me, but they no longer own me. Because now I am not the hidden child or the ghost in the basement. I am Abigail Harper. And every single day I learn how to be her. Not a secret, not a mistake, but a person who exists. A person who is finally fully real. If this story touched something deep inside you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more stories about courage, healing, and truth. Every story we tell reminds us that freedom begins with courage, and sometimes, the smallest act of defiance can change a life forever. Now we'd love to hear from you. What does family truly mean to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep this conversation alive, because somewhere out there, another Abigail is still waiting to be seen.